Welcome to IELTSNation.com. It's your host Malhar Patel, and today I'm going to take you through reading module 2, which will include important skills which are required, for example, scheming, scanning, and predicting content. Let's take a look at scheming first. Scheming is when you quickly read for just the main idea of a text without thinking about specific details. Now I'm going to take you through a couple of steps. If followed precisely, it will make scheming a lot easier. Obviously, this is a skill which requires a lot of practice. Reason being, scheming, it requires a certain skill set. So let's see what all is included. Step 1. Know what you want. Before you start scheming, ask yourself what you want to get from the book or article under your nose. Think of 2 or 3 terms that describe what you want to know, and as you scheme, keep an eye out for those 2 or 3 terms. Aimlessly scheming with no particular purpose can cause drowsiness and eventually sleep. So when we say terms, or when we say to keep in mind 2 or 3 terms, so you need to keep in mind those particular terms in order to scheme precisely. If you are scheming randomly, then you may not find what you're looking for. Step 2. Read vertically as well as horizontally. When scheming, you move your eyes vertically as much as you move your eyes horizontally. In other words, you move your eyes down the page as much as you move them from side to side. Scheming is a bit like running downstairs. Yes, you should take one step at a time, and running downstairs is reckless, but you also get there faster by running. Step 3. Think like the author. Every article, book, and web page is written to make a point of some kind. And if you can detect the author's strategies for making his point, you can separate the important from the unimportant material in the course of your reading. You can focus on the original, meaningful material and skip over the material that just supports the author's argument without advancing it. Detecting the author's strategies requires you to put yourself in his place. Besides noticing the material on the page, notice how he represents the material. See whether you can recognize how the author places background material, secondary arguments, tangential information, and just plain frippery. Step 4. Pre-read before you start scheming. Examine an article before you read it. By pre-reading an article before you scheme, you can pinpoint the parts of the article that require your undivided attention and the parts that you can skip. Step 5. Try to detect the main idea in the introductory paragraphs. The introductory paragraphs usually express the main idea, argument, or goal of an article or chapter. Read these paragraphs closely. They tell you what the author's aim is, which can help you decide early on whether the article or chapter is worth reading in detail. Step 6. Read the first sentence in each paragraph. The introductory sentence of each paragraph usually describes what follows in the paragraph. When you scheme, read the first sentence in each paragraph and then decide whether the rest of the paragraph deserves a read. If it doesn't, move on. Step 7. Don't necessarily read complete sentences. When scheming, you don't even have to read complete sentences. If the start of a sentence holds no promise of the sentence giving you the information you want, skip to the next sentence. Read the start of sentences with an eye to whether they will yield useful information, and read them all the way through only if they appear to be useful at first glance. Don't worry about the words you don't understand. Step 8. Skip examples and proofs. Now, example is a good way to understand what the author is trying to say, but it's a lengthy way. So try to skip examples and proof while scheming. Authors often present examples to prove a point, but if you believe the point doesn't need proving, or the question which you are trying to answer does not include an example or is not derived from an example, you can skip the examples. Now, I would like you to try yourself. There is a paragraph which is on your screen. Try to skim it. Now, sorry, as you can see, the paragraph, the couple of things which you should have picked up is that instead of, I'll just give you an example, instead of reading the whole sentence, that is, butterflies are one of the most beautiful and interesting creatures on earth, you can straight away go butterflies, beautiful, interesting creatures. So you can minimize the number of words that you have to read by at least 50% if you're using scheming. The reason being that average IELTS exam, if you talk about academic, it combined length of all the passages is between 22 to 2800 words, which is a bit of lengthy for 1 year duration for non-English speakers. So if you get your scheming skills pretty good, or if you improve your scheming skills to a certain extent, for those of the students who are facing problem with the time, those of them who are having issues that they are not able to finish the reading test on time, it can seriously solve that problem. So obviously this passage is about butterflies, how attractive they are. They have wings of varying shapes, are cleverly camouflaged, delicate physical structures, curious insects, vary in size, largest known wingspan, glorious creation, our lives much more boring. So those are the words, as I said, is all you need to get the gist of this particular paragraph. Moving on, let's now take a look at scanning. Scanning is when you read to find specific pieces of information such as names, dates, and facts. Now this is very important to where or why mistakes are made. Now one thing that students often forget while scanning is that scanning tells you where to find the answer, not what the answer is. You can scan the text for keywords in the question, but before you answer, you must read the whole question for meaning. Don't stop when you have simply word matched one word. Here, a particular word scanning is just one step in process. It tells you are in the right place. It doesn't necessarily tell you what the answer is. Let's take a look at an example. So here a paragraph is given, like there are actually two, and then there is a question and electives. So you can take half a minute to answer the question, because I think that's more than enough time. I'll let you know when the time is up. Okay, so time up. You should mark your answers. Okay, so when obviously if you are going to skim, we need the term, 2 to 3 terms which we are looking for. So if a numerical term is available, then it's advisable to go for that. So in this case a numerical term is available, 1982. So if you quickly scan through, there is only one number, 1982. So research completed in 1982 found that in United States soil erosion, and then there are the options. So what happened? So in 1982, 1/5 of its farmland was losing topsoil at a rate likely to diminish the soil's productivity. Reduce the productivity of farmland by 20%? No, because the 20%, that is 1/5, does not apply to the productivity. It applies to losing the topsoil. Now what does losing the topsoil mean? Was causing significant damage to 20% of farmland. So significant damage is losing the topsoil. 20% of the farmland is 1/5 of its farmland. So the answer is C. Let's look at one more example. Again, for this also you'll have 30 seconds and your time starts now. Okay, time up. So as you can see in this question also there is a number available, so we can go for mid 1980s. So obviously we have it here from 1960 to 1985. Since it relates to Denmark, so that is this is what we have discussed before. We need at least 2 to 3 terms. So here we can go for a number and a term. If we follow this pattern, then obviously we'll end up here. But if you're just following the number 1980, then you'll end up here, and then you'll be either looking for the answer or will be confused, or will eventually get here, but it will just be a waste of couple of precious seconds. Okay, so by the end of 1980s, the farmers in Denmark, so we are only concerned about the farmers in Denmark. So let us take a quick read at the sentence. Fertilizer use doubled in Denmark in the period 1960 to 1985. So used 50% less fertilizer? Obviously not. Used twice as much fertilizer as they had in 1960? That is precisely what they mean. So the answer is B in this case. Okay, let us take a look at one more example. Again, you'll have 30 seconds for this, and your time starts now. I'm doing the recordings. Not an issue. Okay, thank you. I haven't prepared it yet. I'll do so. I'll email it to you. Okay. Bye. Okay, that would be the end. Let us take a look at the questions. Which one of the following increased in New Zealand after 1984? So here we have a number, that is 1984, and we have a pattern, that is increased. So we're looking for something that increased after 1984. So obviously the number is here. They're talking about New Zealand, so we are obviously the right spot. Now we want to look for something that increased. So keep in mind the synonyms for increment. So if you look at had been followed by a fall, so obviously fertilizer use will not come. So B is not the answer. Then the removal stopped, land clearing, and overstocking. So overstocking also won't come. So farms began to diversify. So this began to diversify. So there was obviously an increase from maybe from nil to a certain level. So obviously the answer will be farm diversification. So the answer is D. Okay, now there are a couple of instances that are given. I would like you guys to guess for which particular thing you will use skimming, and for which particular scenario will you use scanning. Let's take a look at the first one. You look at a newspaper to see if there's a film on TV tonight, whether you will use skimming or scanning. So the answer would be scanning. As I told you before, scanning is used for a particular time, or if you're looking for a specific detail. So here you're looking for a specific detail, that is the film. Let us look at the next one. You look at a train timetable to see when the next train is due. So obviously here also you'll be using scanning, because you're using or you're looking for a specific detail. Followed by, let's look at the next one. You need to decide if a long article will be useful for some research you're doing or not, whether you'll use skimming or scanning. So obviously you'll be using skimming. Reason being, you don't know what you're looking for, because it's a long article. So you need to find whether it's relevant to your research or not. So you'll be quickly skimming it through, considering or keeping in mind 2 to 3 terms which are relevant to your research. Now, last one. You have a meeting in 10 minutes and you haven't read the report you are going to discuss. Which skill set will you use? Will you use skimming or scanning? So for this one also you'll be using skimming, because you have less than 10 minutes, or let's say 10 minutes, and you have to attend a meeting. So to get the brief idea of a report, you'll be using skimming, and as such they have not asked you to look for any particular or specific details. So the skill set used will be skimming. I hope it is clear on which instance to use skimming and on which instance to use scanning. Let's take it. The last one is predicting content. Now this is only for advanced users of English, because it will not be as effective as it is for them as it is for non-English speakers. Now before you read a text in the IELTS exam, it is a good way to predict what you are going to read. Now this will require extensive reading on the part of the student. They should be familiar with all the different types of reading articles. One way is to use the information in the title or the main heading, the summary paragraph, and any subheadings. So this will help you predict the content, and thereby it will help you prepare yourself for the possible answers or questions. Okay, you have 10 seconds. Just quickly skim, scan, and predict the content. And your time's up. Now, after looking at the article, which do you think best describes the text? The information about universities promoting each institution as a good place to study, a holiday brochure selling the UK as the destination for a quick break, a magazine article giving advice on living and studying abroad in different English speaking countries. Now, for those of you who only read the first heading, they are likely to choose number 2, which is incorrect, because if you have read subheadings, it said study in Australia and it also said study in different countries. So obviously here they're talking about, or they're giving not just the information about universities, they are giving information on living and studying abroad in different English speaking country. Let's quickly take a look at that. So as you can see, study in Australia, UK, New Zealand, USA, study in Canada. So obviously all of them are English speaking countries, and they're just studying and living information. It does not contain any information related to the university. Now that would be the end of reading module 2. Remember, practice is the key to success at IELTS, especially the skills. If you master the skimming and scanning skills, you can definitely score really good in IELTS reading exam, and getting a 7 to 8 bands in reading is it's comparatively easy. Well, thank you very much. If you do like our videos, please do like them, and we'll try to improvise ourselves. If you have any feedback for us, do drop it in response to this video, and we'll try to implement as much as we can. Thank you very much.